Good morning, and it's another beautiful day to be with you once again here on the Mid-Morning Park. And of course, you know, on Wednesday, this is where we bring you Wednesday Leadership. Talking matters about leadership in the country, across our 47 counties, and of course, even in the society, and also trying to find out what are some of the things that we can do, what are some of the measures and some of the strategies that we can put into place to ensure that we make our society better, we make our 47 counties better, we make even the entire nation better. This is what we do on Wednesdays. That is Wednesday Leadership in the Mid-Morning Park. My name is Mangicho Mola, and of course, my colleague Paul Kagi is also right here with me. Karibu sana Kagi, good to see you. We were here with you again yesterday.
Yes, thank you so very much. Today is on Wednesday. We thank God for this day, a beautiful morning. I want to thank you, dear viewer, for finding time to be able to watch us on MBCI TV, the Mid-Morning Park. Once again, my name is Paul Kagi. Stay tuned.
Exactly, and you can always expect us on this particular day, and of course on Tuesday, on Legal Tuesday. But of course today it's matters leadership. Now there is a very interesting issue that has actually taken center stage, or has actually made some headlines in the past few days, and this is on the proposal to reduce the number of counties in the country, the number of counties. We know we have 47 counties, but during some of the recommendations, or during the hearing where some recommendations were taken to the National Dialogue Committee, one Professor Gideon Muigai, former Attorney General, recommended that the 47 counties should be reduced. His argument is that the 47 counties are a major burden to the taxpayer, and therefore becoming becoming a nightmare to most or to majority of Kenyans in terms of actually putting bread on the table. Now, this particular proposal is not the first time that it is coming. Other leaders are on record as proposing that the number of counties be reduced. Now, this is what we want to find out today. Do we need, or should we reduce the number of counties? Or if we were to reduce the number of counties, would it mean that Kenyans would have much, or would actually ease the burden that Kenyans have in terms of the economic, or in terms of the economy? That is something that we are going to get into in a short while. We have a guest. He's actually a policy expert and also an economy expert. That is one Evans Kibet. Will be here in a short while to help us to look into this particular matter and try to crunch some few figures here and there and see what we can get as far as this particular debate is concerned. But of course, you know, during this particular show, we also want to make it as interactive as possible and also get your opinions, get your views and perspectives on the same. Therefore, we also want to invite you to give us your views. We have a question that we have put out for you there. And what we are asking you, very simple. Do you support the proposal to reduce the number of counties? Do you support the proposal to reduce the number of counties? Now, you can begin. Our platform, feedback platform, are all wide open. Catch us live on our Facebook page, that is MBCI TV. YouTube, you can get us through MBCI TV official, and of course, for the darlings of the shortcut platform, you can write to us your SMS. The number is 23814, 23814. Of course, we'll always appreciate some of your feedback on this particular subject. We'll be getting into that in a short while, but my colleague Kagi is telling me there are other things that have also made some headlines across this particular 1 week. Kagi?
Yes, correct, Mangicho, and as usual, we are going to have what we call our weekly analysis of what has been happening in the country for the last few days. And there has been a quite of number of issues which has really caught my attention this morning. For the past 3 days, and one of the major issue is the government's proposal to be able to come up with measures to curb wastage in the government spending. And there were some questions which have been raised by many quarters regarding the government or officers who are planning a meeting in Nairobi, but they are holding meetings in Mombasa, and they are all using aeroplanes and choppers. And therefore, this has really caught the government unaware because there were many complaints, And according to the head of civil service, Felix Koskei, is that government must now be serious on the issue of reducing the expense. For example, the CSs, the delegation that accompany the president in abroad, it has been highly sized down. The CSs also, it was mentioned that they are going to only accompany, those people who are going to accompany the CS are only 3 delegates. You know, before you could hear there are 10, 15, but now they're going to be 3. PS, they are going to be 2. And CEC, from the counties, they are supposed to go alone, right? And anybody who is going overseas for government functions or anything, the maximum days they must be there are 7 days. You know, you could hear there's some people who are going out for various missions. You hear they have been in abroad for 2 weeks.
Right.
It has been sized down to only 7 days. Those programs of benchmarking, studying, blah, 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 they have been suspended indefinitely. So there is no longer delegates going out for the purposes of benchmarking. Especially our MCA are very good in that. They usually go for benchmarking, all of them in Israel, on agriculture. And therefore, it's a good move, by the way, whereby depending on the way government is going to implement this program, I could recall during Uhuru's regime, he had come up, when he was a Minister for Finance, yes, he had proposed reducing the government spending. One of them was the vehicles the ministers were using. Sure. And I could recall he proposed the use of, I think, Passat vehicles, yeah, just to help them to be able to reduce the cost of living. When we were having the climate conference in Nairobi, there were also some complaints about the vehicles that are being used there. And I think other than maybe reducing the number of people who are going abroad, or doing meetings in Mombasa, we also need to look at the hospitality, which is also a very huge challenge to us. For example, if you go to the State House, the office of the Deputy President, they are using a lot of money in hospitality. We also need to reduce, if people are eating hens and nyama choma in those offices, they need to reduce them to tea and mandazi. Yeah, it can also help us to be able to reduce the cost of living, because even for the common mwananchi Mangicho, there's some people right now who are skipping their lunches because of the high cost of living. I met a friend of mine somewhere yesterday, after many years, and I asked him, how do you come to town for work? He had a motorbike and told me, I have shifted from motorbike to bicycle. And he was telling me that right now he is cycling for 1 hour in the morning, heading to work, and going back home for another 1 hour. Because the cost of living is so high, the fuel cost is so high, you're going to be able to fuel the piki from home to job and coming back. Again, the matatu's fare is too high for him. You see, so everybody is under fix to be able to reduce the cost of living. And therefore, those government officers who are having some bashes in their offices, they should size down to a lesser expense.
Kagi, I wouldn't want actually to even maybe lay more emphasis on that, because I think the president's directive is coming. We can actually say it is overdue, because this is one of the things that most Kenyans and even some of the experts across the economy have actually been pointing out, that one of the things that have actually been affecting us as a country is especially the war on graft, and now comes this matter or this particular subject on unnecessary, or actually what you can actually just say wastage by government officers. What you're talking about, some of the travels that we've actually been witnessing, some of the sessions that we've actually been seeing, some of the sessions where we are talking about the eating of chicken and so on and so forth. Actually, I totally agree that we don't need these very, very, very gruesome expenditure that we've actually been seeing by our government officers. And if we can actually reduce on this particular wastage, I believe there is a lot of money. And I think I'm very happy because the guest that we're going to have today is also going maybe to help us on this, to actually just to be in a position to see when you're talking about something like these allowances, Kagi, what are we talking about if you were to actually put them in terms of figures? Yeah. How much is going? If, for example, you're saying you're taking maybe a delegation of 10 government officers, 20 government officers, they've gone to Germany, they've gone to France, they've gone to the United States of America. They're going to be there for 1 week. They're going to be there maybe for 2 weeks. What does it cost the country? And can we actually say that the value as a country that you are going to get from this particular visit is equivalent maybe to the importance of having the number of that particular delegation? So I think the president's direction or directive is very, very important. Now, what maybe you are going to see, and maybe what you're going to wait now to see, Kagi, is now the implementation stage. Yeah. Because, of course, we know there is a directive stage, but now the implementation stage. So we want now to find out and now begin to see how many of these officers, how many of these officials will actually be going out, okay? What will they be doing there? If we are going to have sessions, if you're going to have some conferences of what value, what are some of the issues that will be looked into? Yeah. So a very, very important directive, a very, very important measure. Let's see how it goes down, especially now in terms of the implementation. Yes, and as you have likely said, one of the areas they need to focus on is also to handle the issue of the meetings and conferences, which really consume a lot of revenue. I don't think, sometimes they create meetings because of allowances, and therefore the ministry or the Department of the Public Service need to come up with a policy on how to manage the meetings by the public officers, right? Sure. So, okay, let's wait and see, as you have said, for the implementation. That is where the challenge is. Again, as we look on another matter, the issue of the maize is back again. We know in the county of Western Gishu, which is the most popular county in terms of maize farming, they are really asking the government to help them to come up with a way to secure their produce. They are saying already the government has given a warning on the El Nino. Their produce are in the farm, and there is a possibility if this rain is going to find them when their crops are still in the farm, they are going to incur a lot of losses. And they are asking the government to provide what they're calling to supply them with dryers. For example, Mangicho, you have like 20 acres of land. You have harvested your maize. It is not dry. You need to expose it to sun. I don't know how practical it is that you are drying your maize outside every day, maybe like 100, 200 bucks. It's not possible. And they are asking the government to be strategic and useful to help them to get dryers to be able to secure their maize. But the good news is the government has really heard their cry, and it has promised to buy around 1 million bags of maize in this season. And they're also complaining about the dropping of the price of maize. You know, in the last 3 months, the 90 kilograms of maize was around, I think, 5,000 to 6,000. Today is around 4,000, 3,500. As we continue, by December, you may find these 90 kilograms of maize will be around 2,000 shillings. Okay. And therefore, the best thing they really desire is for the government to buy maize for them. It has a capacity for storage. I don't know whether, Mangicho, you ever followed the issue of the Kenya Cereals and Produce Board in the years, in some years back. When I was in high school, we used to do a lot of farming, and we could sell our maize to NCPB, right, which was very effective. NCPB used to come in the villages and buy our maize. You know, the government has what we call the silos, the storage for maize or any other cereals. If you go to Narok, where they do the wheat, in Western Gishu, in Nakuru, other areas, they have good storage for cereals. And therefore, what I think needs to be done is to construct more silos for all the counties which produce maize. Once you have produced your maize, you have harvested, you don't need to worry anymore. Sure. You just give it to government,
and then you wait for your money. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kagi, and I think on that particular note, it's very imperative that the government actually comes up with comes with some of these particular measures that will actually help the farmers, especially during this particular time. And I know most of the farmers will actually complain, especially on matters to do with the price of their farm produce, considering that most of them would actually be very, very, very dependent on agriculture. And of course, this government actually came on board and had some very key promises as far as the agriculture sector is concerned. There has been the argument that they brought some subsidies, especially on the fertilizer. But I think it's important to actually still look into the plight of farmers as far as their produce is concerned.
Yeah. One more issue which is very, very key, which was yesterday. The EACC CEO, Twali Barak, gave a very, very stern warning to those people who will be responsible for managing the El Nino maybe management fund, that we are aware the weatherman has really given us a warning of that we are going to experience El Nino. Although later on they said it's not El Nino as per se. It is not going to be an El Nino as it was experienced in the year 1997. They were calling it an enhanced rainfall.
Okay.
It is not extreme. But the issue here is the government is to set huge budget to be able to mitigate any form of challenge regarding to El Nino. And the CEO of the EACC warned that they are very keen to ensure that no officer who is going to embezzle this fund. And he was saying, according to the history, whenever we have any form of fund, be it drought, the officers are very keen on embezzling those funds. And he gave around 5 areas in which they are very keen on what they do to be able to steal public funds when this money is being released. Number one, he said they have 5 graft avenue, which I think Mangicho will attest to it today. One is emergency procurement, whereby some officers apply for emergency procurement, which are meant only to steal that money. Number two, exaggerated prices. It's not very new. You know, in this country, we have a place where a ball pen, which costs around 20 shillings, have costed 500 shillings. And therefore, he said, anybody who is going to be found to have exaggerated any price is culpable for maybe being arrested and taken to court for that. The other one is conflict of interest, whereby some people want to create their own companies to be able to get contracts for this job. The other one is ghost casual workers. It's very common in our counties, whereby we know that there are some people who bring about casual workers who are not there, who are, do we call it hot air? Yeah. And then we have what we're calling the substandard work.
Right.
You're given some work and then you don't use standard. And finally, not following the procurement procedure.
Yeah, and of course I agree that, you know, we're also learning from our history as a country. And you know, when we have such information and such occurrences, natural occurrences, and there is, of course, the need to prepare for them, we have some notorious people who actually take advantage of these and they want to make something out of it. So if the EACC can actually put their radar on some of these notorious government or maybe officers and maybe also other parties, I think it is important so that we don't again lose resources on these. And maybe Kagi also, before maybe we bring our guests, there is another story that has actually been making headlines on our police going to Haiti. I don't know what you think about that.
A big mission. It's called a Haiti mission.
Yeah, the Haiti mission. And apparently it has caught and elicited mixed reactions among many Kenyans. There are those who believe, no. We are endangering our members of the forces. Yeah. There are those who think, no, it is time that our country should actually also put its name and actually maybe take a responsibility in international circles. Now, of course, the question that is in most of people's minds is how capable, how ready, the kind of capacity that maybe we have to deal with those marauding gangs that have actually been wreaking havoc in the Caribbean nation of Haiti. And I think this is a subject that maybe will continue to elicit mixed reactions, but we want to believe that maybe good reason will prevail so that any step and any measure and any decision that is going to be formed will be for the good of the country, maybe first, even as we look at the international arena.
Yeah, Kenya is not new in any peacekeeping mission in international arena, but the issue of Haiti is not a peacekeeping mission per se. You know, Kenya has been there in Yugoslavia. You know, the time that was a huge war in Yugoslavia.
Right.
Kenya was there for a peacekeeping mission. Kenya has been there in peacekeeping mission in Eritrea. Kenya has been there in peacekeeping mission in Congo. And the Haiti mission, my own understanding is very different, because here we hear there are around tens of hundreds of gangs who have really held that country hostage.
Sure.
And therefore, the situation of Haiti, I see it as the similar with the Somalia, whereby Kenya went to fight the Al-Shabaab, and there were some positive and negative repercussions on that. And therefore, in Haiti mission, they're also going to fight those gangs who have held this country hostage.
Exactly.
But we wish you well. About 1,000 police officers are heading there. Ours as Kenya, because it was passed by the United Nations Security Council yesterday. The government is ready to be able to send these officers. We're also praying for our global nations to be as peaceful as we are. If the United Nations Security Council, because the president was saying it was a request by Haitians, if the presence of Kenya police there is going to stabilize that country, all we can do here is to wish them well.
Absolutely. Just some few minutes to the top of the hour, or to 11 o'clock. And I think at this particular juncture, we can now introduce our guest for today's discussion and for today's conversation is a policy expert and economy expert working with the Center for Enhancing Democracy and Good Governance, CEDGG, Bwana Evans Kibet, to help us get into the heart and the soul of today's discussion. Karibu sana, good to have you.
Thank you so
much. Have you been?
Very fine.
Yes.
Thank you
Good
so
morning,
much,
good morning.
Mr. Kagi.
Yes.
Mr. Mangicho, thank you for having me again.
Sure.
As you've introduced me, my name is Evans Kibet, working with the Center for Enhancing Democracy and Good Governance.
Right.
As a budget analyst, policy analyst, but mainly I coordinate program implementation under the Devolution and Governance program in the organization.
Asante sana.
It's very... we thank God for this other opportunity to inform conversations around pertinent governance issues.
Exactly.
I've heard Kagi mention a few. Maybe I could comment on the 1,000 officers going to Haiti.
Sure. What would be your opinion about that?
I think what worries me is the justification that the cabinet secretary gave. When you say we are doing this, it's God's will. You know, in governance, I think there is more beyond. Of course, all of us, we are a religious nation to some extent. All of us believe in God, or some of us. But then when it comes to very serious policy decisions that have ramifications, we need more justifications. And here, I would call in Parliament. And I've always said that if anything goes wrong on matters governance in Kenya, our parliamentarians should answer questions. They
carry the highest responsibility.
They carry the highest responsibility because we have given them instruments of power. We have given them. We have voted for them to represent us, to oversight.
So an undertaking like this one should actually pass through Parliament motions?
Yes, there should be a motion, there should be questions, the CS should answer questions as to, for example, there is something I know, when government tells you one thing, there are two things they're not telling you. So you need to listen more to what is not being said.
What they are not saying.
What is not being said.
Yes.
Because
now, you're bringing a very important point.
Yes.
And What do you think, therefore, should be in the, or would be in the wisdom maybe of the government, even as maybe it campaigns maybe, or it actually pushes maybe for, or it actually highly or strongly recommends that our forces maybe be in Haiti?
I think Kagi has tried to compare this with Somalia. Somalia, we tried to understand. As people in governance, we said, what is the implication of Al-Shabaab continuing to operate the way they operate in our Kenyan economy, especially on matters tourism. Okay. You remember it came at the height of intrusion of Al-Shabaab into spaces that are even touristic attraction sites. Right. You remember there were tourists that were hijacked from public beaches. You remember that? Mm-hmm. So, but then for this one, so that one there is information we had. Right. There is information that was in the public domain. Mm-hmm. But this one, we are not neighboring Haiti. I don't know how much business ties we have between us and Haiti. What if it is an issue of international cooperation? Where is the AU, UN? Why Kenya police officers alone? You know. Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of mystery in this. But as Kagi said, just in the we can only go with what the minister said.
And of course, Bwana Kibet, yes, the greatest fear for majority of Kenyans would be, God forbid, casualties of war forces.
Yeah, and that's why I wish Parliament would ask questions right at the beginning. Yeah, so that, because at that point people will be held accountable, and we God forbid that we don't get to that point, because these are lives at stake. The officers have families. You know, we don't want to even imagine. Mm-hmm. But I would wish our governance institutions, especially, I am still asking the role of Parliament in such conversations, so that we could ask them in those funerals where we meet, those weddings, what is happening, and they could provide solutions. Mm-hmm. But in this case, this conversation happened very fast. I don't know how many months, for example, for you, how many months have you known that this is going to happen, you know, whether it's an emergency or not, but we ought to have seen some conversation to this end, but we only learned of the commitment when the team was in the UN General Assembly, you know. So,
sometimes I think
so many questions.
Yeah. Sometimes I could feel for our Parliament today, because by the look of things, the reason why I could feel the Parliament is unable to be able to make follow-up is the frustrations they are going through. Mm-hmm. The government is well organized in the legislature, that anything that comes in Parliament really goes through like a...
There are those who believe it's an extended branch of the executive.
Of course, you can be able to see such a kind of a scenario, because anything that government want to bring to Parliament is like a formality. They are certain is going to go through. And therefore, even the members from the opposition, whose role is to be able to question such kind of things, sometimes I think they are frustrated because why should we do all this work? And we know it's not going to bear any fruit. Although it's good to raise questions, to be able to bring to light what is happening in our country.
Sure, I think the Constitution of Kenya that we gave to ourselves has given, I'll refer us there, has given Parliament so much powers in terms of representation and oversight over the executive. I think what is happening is just a matter of the kind of leaders we have, the kind of politics that plays, the outcome of the elections, and so it's appearing like the executive imepanga, imepanga National Assembly.
Sure.
You hear the president sometimes pronounce himself on some policies.
Let's just take a short breather. Then we'll come and finish on that particular point. Remember, we are still watching the Mid-Morning Pack. We are talking about the proposal on to reduce the number of counties, but, you know, giving us your reflections also on the same on our shortcut platform 23814 social media handles, that is MBCI TV for Facebook and also MBCI TV official for YouTube. But comment or two will continue to be appreciated. We are coming back. Don't go far away.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Tune in this Thursday from 7:30 to 8 in the PM katika kipindi cha Mulo Wetu. We will be showing you on how you can prepare your creamed tomato soup served with bread croutons.
Cheese yako umwagilie juu.
Okay, ya ile mkate yetu sasa. Oh. So hii ya kwenda kwa oven haikatakatwi.
Sasa wakati itaiva ndio tutaweza kuikatakata sasa.
Ah, wow, umeelewa? Interesting, yes.
Wakati sasa imeiva ndio tutaweza kuikatakata. So unaacha supu yetu ichemke.
Juu umeongeza ile maji sasa.
Nimeongeza ile maji.
Okay.
Na unajua sasa tunamalizia, nikwambia tunamalizia na nini? Na butter.
Oh, butter, yes. So tunaiongeza hapa.
Sasa tunaweka hapa.
Also after pia tumeiblend bado tunairudisha jikoni.
Tunairudisha jikoni. Hivi sasa uongeze butter yako.
Okay.
Butter.
Tune in this Thursday from 7:30 to 8 in the PM with me, Perpetual Nyambura.
Wewe alikuwa president mwaka gani?
2002.
What?
2002.
Laikipia ni county namba ngapi?
Mimi labda niseme 10.
Akona mguu mrefu kama
miti.
Green lorry, red lorry. Nataka uirudie mara 3 mbio bila kustop. Twende nalo.
Green lorry, lilo. Green lorry, red lorry. Green lorry, red lorry. Green lorry, lilo. Look at you. Kadem kila mtu atafanya. Lamina Mungu wakatuwe kwa. Hey.
Hi there, my name is George Washiri, CEO Optiven Group, and I'm very excited to introduce Ushidi Gardens Nakuru. This property is developed by Optiven, and we are doing compacted maramuros. We plant the trees, fence the property. What's unique about this property? It's only 1.2 kilometers off the highway and 18 minutes from Nakuru City, the pink city. So please call this number 0790 300 300. Optiven, we have you covered.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Welcome back. You are still watching us right here on the Mid-Morning Pack. And today we have a very captivating conversation, and this is on the proposal to reduce the number of counties. The proposal to reduce the number of counties. Now, just to give you a very brief background, during the National Dialogue Committee that is taking place at the Bomas of Kenya, of course, this is a committee that was actually established to look into the issues that were brought by the opposition and try to at least find some amicable solution, especially between the government and the opposition. Now, in one of the recommendations that was done by the former Attorney General, that is Professor Githu Muigai, his recommendation or proposal is that the number of counties that we have is too large for this particular nation to sustain. And therefore, he is recommending that we need to have fewer. Okay, and it is not the first time, like I had mentioned initially. We have the CS for Trade and Investment, that is Moses Kuria. There was a time that he also came up with this particular recommendation that counties should actually be be reduced. And of course, actually, even as we're talking about counties, he also recommended that we also reduce the number of constituencies. And another leader, that is Boni Halwale, the senator for Kakamega, is also on record as proposing the same. So we want to find out, therefore, what does it mean when we hear leaders beginning to talk about these very critical issues, especially when we're talking about maybe resources and also representation. There is a question that we've put out for you because we also want to get from you what your views and perspectives are, and we're asking you, do you support the proposal to reduce the number of counties? Do you support the proposal to reduce the number of counties? You can give us your feedback on our shortcut platform, that is 23814. You can also catch us live on our Facebook page, that is MBCI TV, and also YouTube, that is MBCI TV Official. And of course, we'll be glad to also see how is it that you are actually responding to this particular subject. Now, let's continue with our guest. Our guest for this particular conversation is Evans Kibet. He's a policy and also an economy expert or analyst, and working with the Center for Enhancing Democracy and Good Governance. But Bwana Kibet, allow us just to get into this particular conversation, because I know most Kenyans would want to really find out where is it that we are, because when you have leaders of very, very high caliber, in terms maybe of the kind of influence that they have, coming up with these particular recommendations. So, and when you hear some of these leaders, as a policy expert, as an economy expert, what is your thinking?
Yeah, I think very interesting conversation. Anytime we discuss with practitioners what is happening in the National Dialogue Committee, we get worried because we are, who is leading this process, you know? Look at it as structured as it is now. The other day, the church raised his voice and said representation of other groups is missing. Let me just mention some of the immediate things that, some of the things that is taking the conversation in the wrong direction, for lack of a better word, is representation in the committee itself, because I'm not saying that the people who are there are not experts. They are experts in their own respects. But then do we have people who are experts in the economy? Okay. Do we have people who are experts in governance? Do we have people who are experts in, you know, issues, social issues, you know? Because when you hear, when a whole delegation traveled from Mount Elgon to meet the National Dialogue Committee, and you saw the tears that were shed there, I think the issues are deeper than what is being said. So just reducing the whole conversation into increasing or reducing counties, because the conversation has been around that. Those who are crying as marginalized say that we need our county. Those who are, the people who feel like there is wastage, because I think that's the conversation the expert who presented said, is that their counties are not viable as they are. But then just to throw in some numbers so that we begin to give reason, because absence of numbers, the conversation could go any direction, and it could lead us into a process that is not gainful, you know. So we have 47 counties, 1,450 wards in Kenya. As per of course, the 47 counties are defined in the first schedule of our constitution. And just to go back a little bit, how did we get to counties? I think you guys have been here long enough to know the history of our country and how we got ourselves to the Agenda 4, and finally, was it the Agenda 4? Agenda 4, yes, until we got ourselves to a devolved system of governance. I think the whole issue was around marginalization, equity and representation. You know, it revolved around that. So now the bigger question to ask, if we are to reduce, who is ready to let go of their counties? But then just now to bring in the numbers themselves, if we are to reduce counties in terms of expenditure, what will we save? You know, people have not, you know, you need a calculator to have that conversation. Because maybe the conversation will be at the county level only. So we might because the issue of wards and constituency is an issue of representation.
Right.
So that might be very difficult to reduce. So you say you reduce counties. What will you have reduced? You will have reduced maybe the salaries that go to governors, county executive committees, members, chief officers, because those are the ones that are attached to counties, and maybe the public service board, which is very lean. If you look at the budget, even for Nakuru County and our neighboring counties that we analyze, the budget is very lean. So if we are to reduce and say we are very efficient, trust me, it wouldn't go beyond 8% of what the county spent. Okay. And I'll give you the facts again. You are not going, because if you are talking about wage bill, you are not going to reduce the number of doctors. Because that's what is in the wage bill. You know, sometimes we say the wage bill is over the roof. Yeah. But when we go deeper scratch and see who are we paying? Apart from governors, we have the doctors, we have the ECD teachers. Are we going to reduce ECD teachers? Are we going to reduce ward administrators and the extension workers? You know, you have to understand the structure of service delivery by the county government. So the only numbers that could go down is the number of governors, the number of county executive committee members, the number of chief officers, of course, and those political positions which usually don't have any significant. Of course, we say sometimes that we had a discussion at that time of how many advisors should the governor have and all that, but the impact, the implication on what we are talking about cost of living is very negligible. So,
Bwana Kibet and Councillor Sikagi wants also to bring some point. If I can just interject just shortly. So, when you're talking about reducing the number of counties, the main issue that you're talking about is resources in terms of the wage bill. And of course, in this particular case now, the people that we'll actually be focusing on are those maybe in this elective post.
Yes, because the conversation about, for example, what we spend on development per county is a conversation of need. And the need is a constant factor.
It's a constant factor.
We will still need boreholes for people to get water. We'll still need classrooms for our ECD children to learn in a conducive environment. We'll still need farm inputs and programs, the extension programs for us to be productive in agriculture. So I think...
So you're telling us if, for example, maybe we were to get rid of maybe like 20 governors and maybe we're talking about the CCs?
Yes.
We're talking about the CCs and maybe some other... If you could just break down for us the mathematics.
Yeah,
you're telling us how much will we be saving as a county?
So we are saying the numbers, of course, we don't know how many will end up if there is a conversation, if it is ever get successful. But we are saying our math shows that only 8% of these, for example, the 385 billion that is going to counties, only 8% is what is spent on those positions in terms of remuneration. And of course, the operations that go with those offices. I wish we had maybe some place we could display those numbers. Sure. But then, if you look at that 8% vis-a-vis what we could say from the conversation we just had before we began the issue of counties, the conversation of wastage. The conversation of corruption. We lose, you remember, we keep citing because that is authoritative position. The former president said we lose 2 billion per day in corruption by that time. You know, 2 billion multiplied by 300 and I don't know how many days are in your calendar, 365, you know. How much is that? That's a third of the 3.6 trillion budget.
Exactly.
So we are saying a third of our resources, and that trickles down to what is even happening at the county. A big chunk of the county budget is lost in corruption and wastage. And what I would wish the public service department, the Department of Public Service, should do is, you talked about implementation, but we also need to have a strong performance-based management. Because, for example, if we are to talk about, because that's the pain people see of people traveling and the expenditures they incur on, what is the service delivery outputs and outcomes out of the service? Why shouldn't we push this conversation further towards adopting models that are used by the private sector, the non-governmental organization. If today MBCI was to allow you to travel to South Africa, I am sure you will have put a very concrete proposal on the table on what value
to justify.
So why are we talking about? I don't have a problem with how many people are going. For me, as a person who looks at numbers, I will have a problem with the outcome.
The outcome
of that tour.
Yes.
What can we see?
What can we see
from that travel when they come back?
So if you are,
that is what we've been missing.
Because we have seen in the same counties, because we work in these counties, we have seen governors who go out there and bring business to their counties. But at the same time, we have seen those who go there for holidays, and shopping. That has been the conversation. So, and I am sure, and I don't know why the Honorable Felix Kosgei is angry right now, but I am sure if our conversations, because we work with these people, is that anytime you are traveling outside the country, your travel has to be approved by the public service, Department of Public Service. Because you're going there as a government officer.
Sure.
So where do we lose the point, So implementation is an issue. So this is just pronouncement because the control of budget has raised.
Before we go to that direction,
you're burning with your point. Yeah.
Yes.
You can go ahead before I also come back here.
Yeah. I want to look at it this way. Regarding to why sometimes we may reduce the counties, away from maybe trying to reduce the expenditure, blah, blah. I believe if we could be able to arrange our county into a serious economic blocks, could be even more effective to our nation. For example, if you look to most of our counties, they are not making money. In fact, I think there are around 5 who are able to sustain themselves. Others are relying on the national government. Suppose we are reducing our counties to be able to create a more vibrant and effective economic blocks. For example, we create counties for guys who are pastoralists. And then we gear our resources towards that block to help them maybe to be able to improve their lives through livestock. Number 2, we come to this region. Those guys who do maize farming as a block, making silos for them, empowering them. We go to other regions who do like horticulture farming. We create those economic blocks.
Before you come in, it's actually like, Kagi, you read my mind, because one of the things that Professor Githu was saying is that some of these counties, Bwana Kibet, they are not economically viable. Now, as an expert, what do you mean on that particular point, relating to what Kagi is actually saying, amalgamating some of these particular counties? And since we started, do we have counties that maybe have been a burden to the national government or to the central government as compared maybe to the others?
Great. So I think I agree partly to the conversation of counties being self-sustainable, moving towards self-sustainability. But the Constitution, sometimes we even forget very basic things. The Constitution, for example, because people refer to the own source revenue, what is allowable for counties to collect?
Sure.
It is only property tax, entertainment tax, and of course this other service delivery tax, broadly speaking. When people, I know some of these people have traveled and are exposed, maybe they have gone to, do you know a country like Nigeria, states are allowed to collect income tax.
Okay.
Which is huge. That's why you see this government raining on your pay slips, because it is huge and is easier to collect. Because we have an agent in the name of the employer, So the judging counties by comparing with their budgets versus what they are raising might not be a very fair conversation. Because even the income tax, where is it raised from? Is at the county level. The other tax that national government, corporate tax, that national government relies on, is what is with these companies and these institutions are within the counties. So, but then I'll take you back to how did we get to counties? Again, that question we need to ask ourselves so that we don't lose our history in the conversation.
Yes.
We tried districts I think the colonial districts. What did we say about them? Almost a similar conversation. We went to, of course, the local authorities, you know, which were not also given powers to
municipalities.
They didn't have adequate. They had very good plans.
And then provinces.
I was heading there. Then provinces. But then the whole conversation about provinces was, of course, they didn't have powers to raise revenue and spend. But then when we chose the counties, we thought about service delivery. So don't forget that there was a conversation around efficient service delivery. So if you take back, if you tell the people of Turkana that now you will travel back to Nakuru for services, what does that mean? Maybe we call it something else. You can call it regional blocks. And our constitution allows, because it talks about intergovernmental relations. It's just that because of the politics of what is it there for me, and you know that governors have not been very supportive and counties have not been very supportive of the regional blocks. But this conversation, of course, it had started picking.
Before you continue,
yes.
The issue of regional block, I hope you're aware that our governors have been meeting on a certain quarters. For example, Eastern governors, they could meet as a block.
Yes.
It is the same thing that we are seeing here. It's like they want to talk about it, they fear to talk about it, the same block, and they have been doing it.
Great. So I was asking myself, the question is, like, when matters of development, that is an option of consideration. Encouraging more of, because that's viability, because that's the economy view. They enjoy economies of scale. You bring together resources and do a mega program that has more impact, you know. But then let's not lose sight of service delivery. So then the question to ask, if we reduce counties, will they be units? Because the counties are units of service delivery. So will the regional blocks remain units of service delivery, you know? So that will bring about, we'll go back to the other conversation of access to proximate services. We'll go back to the conversation of representation, you know, because if you, those guys the Mount Elgon community who went to present their petition to the National Dialogue Committee, their conversation was around, even within the counties, they still feel marginalized. So the question is how now bring counties together. Who is first? Who is ready to lose their county? Yes. You know, and all that. The question of public participation. Yes. You know, do you think when we have, because if you look at the objects of devolution under Article 174, they are very clear. So I would wish anybody thinking about, because I've given you the numbers in terms of what especially because I know the conversation is driven by wastage and what we spend on wage bill. I know that is the conversation behind it. But I've told you what we might save in terms of personnel emoluments cost is negligible. I agree with the development angle of merging, but the Constitution still allows. So that we don't go into, because you know what Article 255 says, we've had people cite it, is coming out again. That time it was interpreted severally because of the BBI conversation. Now it's coming back again. You will hear a lot of interpretation of that. But what is clear, you know, not everything is clear, is that anything that touches on a devolved system of governance will have to go through a referendum, you know. So is it worth? And we're talking about cost of living, we're talking about wastage, we're talking about all those problems that are bedeviling us as a moment. But again, the problem of reducing and increasing counties, there is a whole conversation that has also not been brought to the front, and we wrote a memorandum as civil society working on devolution. The question of how have counties been supported? If you talk about that they are not delivering service delivery as they should because they are not implementing impactful programs, how much money do they have at their disposal?
Exactly.
The president, in his wisdom, and I am happy about it, he said during the devolution conference that within 60 days, he wants to see all functions of county government that are still implemented by national government transferred alongside the resources. Yeah. we don't have the numbers because costing of functions, because that's a problem, and I hope governors, I wish governors would have concentrated on that instead of saying, I've heard their chair saying, their conversation is about how easy it is to impeach them. You know? But they're not talking about the struggles they have to deliver some services. The other time we were here to talk about, we mentioned the issue of ECD function alone. What we budget at the county level, Nakuru County, even for example, is less than a third of what is needed to deliver effectively the ECD function. What is given for health, and we see the national government wanting to rein in. You've seen the conversation around primary healthcare network, PHN networks, the health promoters. That's according to the Constitution, that's a devolved function. But we have seen the national government having high appetite for that. The latest numbers that we can cite, which are authoritative, the Intergovernmental Technical Committee, you remember that is the successor for the Transition Authority, you remember? So that was the one that was mandated to ensure that there is that transfer function either way, and any other cooperation. Mentioned a figure of 272 billion. That's just a figure, and I'm sure if more proper costing is done, it could be more of what is still implemented by the national government, which ought to come to county government.
And actually, that is the point that I really wanted Bwana Kibet to help us, because Kagi, what we've talked about, very key, how effective, how successful these particular counties that we have are supported. Now, when you look at the amount allocated for these particular counties, vis-a-vis what the common mwananchi, what the average Kenyan, what the voter can actually feel as a result of the programs that we are seeing in these particular counties. What is your quick assessment?
Yeah, I think we have a very good model. The devolved system of government is, if you look at even history of devolution, in globally, in the region, that is the model people are going, they're saying is sustainable and is promoting all those factors that, those that are captured in our objects of devolution. But the counties have 14 functions. Let's not forget that. You know, sometimes we see them struggle a lot to do maybe 3 or 4, and we judge them by that. But they have 14 functions. If each of the function is costed, the nitty-gritties are brought to the table and it is costed, I'm telling you what they receive is a drop in the ocean.
What are the functions that we really know about, the few that people don't know? About the health?
Even one that we like saying, because we are people who are advocating for that, is civic education, capacity building of citizens. For so long, people have thought civic education is a function of non-state actors, the civil society, you know. Let me hope I'll get here. We talk about agriculture, even what sometimes you see the national government doing in terms of, because national government, if you look at it in summary, national government was supposed to deal with policy setting and those functions that are not easily implementable at the county, issues of foreign affairs, security. But the rest, service delivery functions, if you summarize, all the services, the public services that the citizens look up to from government as they pay their taxes, largely they are county government functions.
When you talk about Bwana Kibet, what do they get vis-a-vis the functions that they have is a drop in the ocean. For the layman, our counties, what do they receive? And what, in terms maybe of priority, do those monies go to?
Good. The Constitution talked about not less than 15% of the recently audited account. Not less than. So it meant that there is no higher limit. We should see goodwill to always increase. And it gave it brought in some science that there will be a commission, an independent arbiter between national and county government. That is the Commission on Revenue Allocation. And the Commission of Revenue Allocation was to bring in the science of, because a lot of what you see in the division of revenue, the 385, 380, 405, that conversation that happens, and we are likely it's about to begin again, is usually very political, is hardly scientific. So CRA was supposed to give recommendations for division of revenue between national, of course they usually give, but also behind CRA, because for you to say national government should get this, county government should get this. Unfortunately, they have been limited to historical allocations. In fact, it started from a very unfair point. It started by saying, what have been the defunct local authority been getting? That was the way it started. And saying, now inflation, all that, and they come up with some number. Okay. But the effective way is to cost the functions and say, I keep using ECD because that's where I see, and vocational training, because we say vocational trainings in counties are under-resourced. I think you've heard that with the young people saying, this vocational training, the Manyundo, in quotes, that's what they have branded it because of the kind of equipment they have, because of the kind of instructors they have. But if they were resourced, would they have the infrastructure? They would modernize, you know? True. But what does it take to deliver that service? An ECD classroom, as it was per the policy, should have, of course, 25 pupils and at least 2 teachers. Of course, the teacher and an assistant, you know? And any ECD center, minimum, probably it's three classrooms, you know, minimum.
Oh, minimum.
Yes, because we are talking about those grades, you know. You are talking about 6. How many ECD centers are in Nakuru? I think that's numbers you can find out and calculate. And you can do the math and say what as SRC suggested on how much should be paid to one ECD teacher. And just simple math, just do that. And you realize even what we have in the budget is not even enough to sustain 2 teachers. Leave alone, that's it, the entire budget, leave alone equipment that ECD teachers, the ECD pupils need, the play materials, the learning materials, you know. The same applies to vocational training. Yes. How many instructors should there be? And it is that specialized because you talk about hands-on. You cannot have a mechanic teaching, somebody who understands motor vehicle engineering teaching, plumbing, you know, and such like. So for it to deliver the vocational training function, there's still a lot of money to be. Maybe in the next conversation we'll bring up those numbers, and it will surprise you when we say a drop in the ocean. We have done the math and seen, and that is why you see the shortage. What they count, for example, the Ministry of Health, the problems we see in the Ministry of Health, that KMPDU is proposing that we recentralize health. What is their problem? If you look at it, is it a problem of remuneration? It's summarized as that. They, of course, they say other things, that the working environment, we don't have equipment to work, but the major part of it is remuneration. But every time the County Allocation of Revenue Act is passed, there is a ceiling for wage bill. So the governors, there is a point they cannot go beyond.
Allow me to cut you briefly, Kibet, because I want us also to get the perspectives of Kenyans and also the opinions of Kenyans on this particular matter. Of course, you know, during this particular discussion or during this particular show, we always get a segment where our reporter Vincent Kimtai gets into the streets and also talks with Kenyans to also find out what do they think. And we we actually asked Vincent Kimtai to go and interact with Kenyans and find out from them, do they support this particular proposal to reduce the number of counties? And here is what he got. Vincent Kimtai, take it right away.
Shukran sana Mangicho Mola pamoja na Paul Kagi, na kulingana na mjadala mnaojadili hapo studioni hivi leo, hapa nitakuwa nikiwashirikisha Wakenya kuhusiana na pendekezo ya aliyekuwa mwanasheria mkuu Githu Muigai. Githu Muigai wiki iliyopita alipofika mbele ya kamati ya kitaifa ya majadiliano kwenye ukumbi wa Bomas, alipendekeza kupunguzwa kwa kaunti kutoka 47 hadi 14, vile vile akipendekeza pia kuweza kupunguzwa kwa maeneo bunge nchini, akisema haya yote yanaweza kusababishia Mkenya ugaramika zaidi katika kufanikisha malipo na kufanikisha ile uchaguzi wakati uchaguzi unapoandaliwa. Je, Wakenya wanasemaje kuhusiana na pendekezo hilo ya Githu Muigai?
Naitwa Ezekiel Gitau. Mimi kwa upande ya maoni naunga mkono ya kaunti zipunguzwe, kwa sababu hata nchi kama Amerika, Kenya ni nchi ndogo sana na ni nchi ambayo haijakuwa na hizo kaunti ni kama kutesa nchi, sababu economy ya nchi haiko, na sisi si kama nchi ambazo zimeendelea. Wale ni first class na walianza kitambo, so wakati walileta kuintroduce hizo kaunti si vibaya, lakini singestahili ziwe tu chache. Hata kama ingewezekana iwe 10 zizikanishwe, alafu ndio nchi iweze kukua juu. Kila kaunti inataka pesa na wenye wameajiriwa pale, so lazima pesa zinatumika zaidi za serikali. Wakati wanakusanya ushuru wanawekea wananchi hata majukumu kubwa sana, hata au pia juu hao ambao wameajiriwa pale lazima wapewe nini? Wapewe mshahara. Sasa mimi ningeweza kusema wenye walileta hiyo maoni ya kukaa kama nchi za Amerika si vibaya kukua, lakini ni heri ifanywe nini? Papunguze ndio nchi. Hata sasa hatuna pesa. Ikiwa hata kama watu hawajalipwa mishahara na hata county national government inashindwa kurushia hata counties pesa juu ukosefu ya hizo pesa. Sasa ikipunguzwa inaweza kuwa inasaidia at least.
Hiyo pendekezo ya kupunguza counties tunaunga mkono, kwa sababu watu wanapoongezwa kazini wanahitaji pesa zaidi, na mwananchi anaendelea kuathirika kifedha. Kwa hivyo tunasema wapunguzwe na wenye wamewekwa kwa maofisi wafanye kazi mzuri, na tutashukuru sana.
Mimi naweza sema county baki hivyo venye iko 47. Siwezi taka ipunguzwe, naweza taka ibaki hivyo venye iko.
Kwa nini unataka ibaki hivyo? Nafikiri kuna manufaa gani umeona county 47 inakusaidia?
Sasa unajua hapa ina depend na governor mwenye anachaguliwa kwa county yake. Kuna governor wanafanya kazi, kuna wengine wafanyi kazi, kuna wengine wanapora. So kama utaangukia ule governor mzuri mwenye anafanya kazi, county yako itaendelea mzuri. Hapo kwa maeneo bunge naweza taka hiyo, ndio naweza taka ipunguzwe. Hiyo ikipunguzwa itakuwa sawa. Kwa upande wangu mimi naona hivyo. Kama sasa hapa Nakuru Town, tuko na Nakuru Town West na Nakuru Town East. Mimi naweza penda ikuwe moja. Isikuwe Nakuru Town West na Nakuru Town East, ikuwe tu moja tu.
Na hii mambo ya county mashinani inakuwa ni ngumu sana kumanage. Ufisadi imekuwa mingi sana kwa county. Every county inategemea national government, at the end of the day unakuta pesa inapotea. So mimi namuunga mkono ipungue kabisa.
Ni bunge?
Maeneo la bunge hata naweza ponda irudi venye ilikuwa 210.
Zipunguzwe paka hata 14 ama irudishwe paka zile mikoa ambazo zilikuwa za zamani 8. Kwa sababu hizi kaunti zote 47 ambayo iko katika nchi yetu ya Kenya imeongeza gharama ya maisha kwa mwananchi kuwa juu. Na hata naweza sema hizo tangia to devolve hizi maneno ya county, hakuna kitu ambayo imetusaidia, ni kufanya tu gharama na kuongeza watu ambao hata watakikani kwa serikali. 290 constituency inatukost pesa mingi. Inatakikana hata ipunguzwe, ikiwezekana hata ikuja hata paka 190 kama zamani.
Mimi naunga hilo jambo mkono, sababu the more tunachagua watu wengi, the more tumechagua wezi wengi, sababu pesa mingi zinapotelea kwao na tuko na mzigo mkubwa sana kama Wakenya kulipa watu. Wamekuwa wengi, ni hili hata wakati ule tulikuwa tunachagua watu president, MP na councillor.
Mimi naona hii mambo ya county kama ingepunguzwa ingekuja chini vizuri, ili at least wananchi waweze kufikia ile lengo lao walikuwa wanataka. Ukiangalia saa hii kila kitu imeenda juu, hata fare ya kuja town imekuwa shida. Hata ukiangalia vile mambo inaenda, Kenya yetu ni kama inaenda ikirudi nyuma. Kwa hivyo tunaomba tu kama county yetu kama ingewezekana tungepunguziwa hii mzigo, ili kila mwananchi aweze kufikia ile lengo lake. Kama saa hii ukiangalia hata pesa ya parcel vile inapeanwa, ni kama inapeanwa kwa individuals, wale wa zamani, wale watu wanajuana. Sasa kama saa hii ukipata kama ni mtu ametoka labda Central Nyanza, inapeanwa tu within the family. Hiyo sasa kama ingewezekana tungepunguziwa hata at least kila mtu aweze kupata kila ile kitu anataka. Vizuri sana.
Mimi naitwa Veronica Waithera. Naweza omba county zipunguzwe kwa sababu imetufinyiria kwa kila biashara, kwa kila masomo, kwa kila jambo lolote. Kwa sababu wamekuwa wengi na mahitaji zimekuwa ndogo, wametufinyiria kwa kila jambo. Ikipunguzwa mradi inaweza fikia Wakenya.
Lakini si vibaya kuwa na kila county, si vibaya. Lakini sasa iwe saidia juu nchi ni ndogo. Sasa inastahili wapunguze ndio hata wananchi waache kuumia, ushuru itoshe, sababu wao ambao wakati mkiongeza mishahara inaongezeka.
Mangicho pamoja na Paul Kagi, ni maoni ya Wakenya hayo kuhusiana na pendekezo la kaunti kupunguzwa kutoka 47 hadi 14, ambapo tumeona asilimia kubwa wanaunga mkono kaunti kupunguzwa, huku mmoja tu ambaye tumezungumza naye anasema anataka kaunti kuweza kusalia 47 hivyo. Kumbukwa kuwa pendekezo la Githu Muigai linakuja siku chache tu baada ya wabunge tuliona wakiibua pendekezo la kutaka kaunti kuongezwa humu nchini, kuongezwa kwa kaunti humu nchini, pendekezo ambalo Githu Muigai wiki jana alipokuwa mbele ya kamati ya bunge kuhusiana ya majadiliano kwenye ukumbi wa Bomas akitaka kaunti kuweza kupunguzwa hadi 14. Na hapo tumesikiza maoni ya Wakenya wakiunga na wengine wakipinga. Mangicho, narejesha ushukani kwenyu mkaweze kuendelea. Nikiripotia kipindi cha Mid Morning Park, MBCI TV, jina langu ni Vincent Kimutai.
Asante sana mwenzangu Vincent Kimutai kwa mambo hayo. And dear viewer, those are the sentiments from the public regarding to the reducing of the counties. I don't know what is your comment on this. They have really given their views on this matter.
Yeah, Kagi, and even as when Kibet comes in, it's like, is it a matter of maybe where is the missing link? Where is the missing link? Is it that Kenyans are frustrated? Because actually majority, just as Vincent Kimutai has said, apparently most of the ones that he has actually interviewed, most of them are of the opinion that these counties should actually be reduced.
Yeah.
And there is that particular point that I remember Kibet, you said, who would really want his county maybe to actually be gotten rid of?
Yeah.
What do you think is happening to Kenyans as we've watched?
I think our work is cut out of civic education. Our work is cut out, I can see. And especially of budget training, budget sensitization.
Sure. So some lack of information somewhere.
So they have information, but I can say inadequate information, or they have not sat to deliberate.
It's not a case of things not happening on the ground.
People are driven currently by the emotions and the challenges we are. The unfortunate thing is just like when you go to any public participation, we have seen that anytime people are asked, what do you want for our county? What they would say, and that is the problem you said about dividing, spreading thin, people will remember the problem that they encountered that morning. If there was a mama who was going to deliver, did not get to the facility, could be many reasons. Could be an issue of she was not attending antenatal clinic, then she didn't know her due date. It could be an issue of the poor road. But what would people say? We want a maternity, a hospital with a maternity, a dispensary with a maternity wing today here.
Yes.
Yeah? Sure. But if they sit down and reflect, what does the policy say? What is the distance? What is the challenge that we are experiencing? So I would take the question back to our viewers. What is the problem? And you've heard them say corruption.
Yeah.
Reducing counties will reduce corruption?
No.
Yeah. We still have the national government. Is there corruption at the national government?
In fact, they used to say that when we came, we had the devolved unit.
Yes.
We devolved even the corruption.
The corruption. So we have them at 8. Will we have reduced corruption? Good. That's a first question. Number 2, they've talked about wage bill. I told you that Githu's presentation will not be received as or conceptualized as promoting economies of scale. If that was the conversation, then we would say the counties as currently structured, are they able to cooperate and promote economies of scale? Then we put up structures, we strengthen the regional economic blocks. One of the challenges, maybe I need to mention this now, why regional economic blocks have not functioned is the policy structuring of it. Like, for example, currently they have to rely on budgets and subscriptions from members.
Who are the members?
The counties themselves. For example, NOREB, Baringo, West Pokot, all that. So county assemblies have to pass. They have to discuss an agenda for NOREB and pass allocations to that. But if there were, maybe something we could discuss is a percentage of what goes to counties could be allocated to could be spent, not even allocated, could be spent at the level of region.
Ah.
That's a possible, and that does not require a referendum. The counties remain, and then we strengthen the policy approach of, like currently, you know, national government, and that's the responsibility of the national government, providing policy direction in a way that promotes the economy. So the question of increasing or reducing has not been conceptualized as promoting economic viability, as you can see. Even what people are, you know, people receive messages differently. They have talked about wage bill. I'll still emphasize what we spend on wage bill. Nakuru County, I was just had some data here. 2022-2023, allow me just to refer, is that they spent 2022-2023, they spent around 20, of course the budget was 20 billion, and compensation to employees was around 6 billion. Who is this 6? Who are we paying with this 6 billion? Because we can talk about our county. Who are we paying with this 6 billion? I would challenge anyone to go and check the staff establishment of Nakuru County. We only have 10 CECs. 10, because I'm saying if the county was to go, if Nakuru County was to go, would the dispensaries go?
Yes.
Would the ECD centers go? Would the cattle dips and the agricultural officers that manage it go? The wards, because nobody has, of course, that conversation will get there. Nobody has talked about wards. Because the wards would remain. We'd have the MCS, would have the ward administrators and all the structures of service delivery. So nobody is saying that it is always good to think about reducing expenditure, but the justification of the entire restructuring of governance, we should have value for our money in that conversation. You know, so I've said you will only lose the governor,
sure.
the CECs, the chief officers. Trust me, the directors will not go anywhere. The directors are permanent and pensionable, and of course we even have a shortage of those technical officers. You know that. If the counties were to be genuine and employ, the public service board would employ genuinely, I'm sure they would employ from the director going downwards.
So these two issues, Bwana Kibet, your point is very valid, but then there was a viewer there that talked about the issue of constituencies. When you look at constituency in relation maybe to counties, are there duplication of roles? Do you think, therefore, even in as much as maybe you're saying we are not overrepresented, or maybe even getting rid of some of these elected and elective posts would not maybe necessarily change or actually even maybe bring any significant shift. But when you are to look maybe at such kind of an argument, do you think maybe there is a way in which maybe it might be of any major significance? And then this other issue of this other viewer who said this counties also depends on the kind of individuals, the nature of individuals, and the type of individuals that you've put. So if you get a governor who really has a vision for the country, who is really having the capacity to manage and maybe to turn around the economic situation of that particular county, then that particular county can actually be far much ahead of the other county. What do you make of this kind of reasonings?
Great. So I'll take you back to the agenda that has been put out there for public participation. And I hope people send their memorandums. Because the people I'm seeing being invited, we are, as a civil society, because I convene the Kenya Devolution CSO working group as the convener. We sent a memoranda and we talked about what is ailing devolution. Unfortunately, we are yet to get the invitation. So I would want to know how Githu Muigai got to go to the front of the national, so that we can discuss with them, can pose these questions to the National Dialogue Committee. Unfortunately, that's what we have for now. The National Dialogue Committee is there because we still have a problem with even how it's constituted. I've told you that. Because if it was constituted if you look at the process that led to promulgation of this constitution, it was very rigorous. People, where there was needed to put facts on the table, we had the facts. Not emotions, not political alienations, and all that. So by the time we got something tabled for referendum, there was substance behind it. So me, I'm looking forward to that kind of conversation. But then you mentioned something to do with constituencies. People are talking about reducing constituencies, but you've seen one of the agenda for the National Dialogue Committee is entrenching National Government Affirmative Action Fund, entrenching National Government Constituency Development Fund, entrenching the Senate Oversight Fund. They have talked about the 3 funds. And Kagi, you mentioned it very clearly, that is duplication. That is the money, that is still money that, because we're talking about decentralizing. What model have we chosen as a country for decentralizing? Maybe that's the question. And that was done through a referendum. And we passed ourselves, we now have a constitution. What model have we chosen? Is devolution. What is the unit of service delivery in devolution? It's the counties. If you listen to, if you read through the court ruling for the national government, the petition on the CDF, Constituency Development Fund, the court pronounced itself on counties as of course there was an issue of separation of powers and functions, but counties as the units of development and service delivery. So what share of, if you see what comes to CDF, vis-a-vis what comes to counties. If that money was added to the counties, sometimes even we don't do oversight of that because we are all focusing on the counties. They talk about 100 million minimum to every constituency. We have how many constituencies in Nakuru? I think over, are they 11? Over 11 or thereabout. That is how much? 1 billion additional to county. Then we have women reps. Now they're talking, sorry, not women reps, the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. Of course, we have now associated it with the office of the women rep, because you see how they have come at the center. Because hata saizi wananchi huko nje wanasema hii ni pesa ya nani? Ya women rep, 50 million. For every county, because as the women reps at the level of, the women representatives at the level of the county. So all these monies, the monies that go to state corporations who do functions, or state semi-autonomous sagas, the semi-autonomous government agencies, who do functions that otherwise are assigned. Following this constitution, if we were just to draw that line and say, if you don't fall, if you're not doing a national government function, all the resources, and including human resources, because sometimes people misinterpret when you say we need to dissolve some of these agencies to mean people to lose their jobs. A good example, you've seen what has happened with our Central Rift Water Works Development Agency. What is the mandate? Do people know the mandate of the Central Rift Water Works Development Agency? Constitutionally, matters water service delivery is county. Then what the national government is only allowed to do is to, according to the constitution and subsequent gazette notices, is to do water reservoirs, the bigger water reservoirs. At some point, we will not need them. These agencies, yes, because how many dams? Even right now, we're talking about sustainable mechanisms. So at some point, the demand for those reservoirs will be done, because these are agency of the Ministry of Water. So they were created to fast track. Or to, I don't know whether you get the philosophy. They were created to enable the ministry to function better. Once they deliver, because if, for example, Itare Dam is done, Chemususu Dam is done, Kirandich Dam, all those dams, Tuake Dam, all those that are mentioned in the budget, the bigger role will go to which institution? So the county government. And these agencies will continue to receive recurrent expenditure that would otherwise support the county. So people are frustrated. So it's a situation of, just to summarize, a situation of we are ailing, but we want to treat symptoms. And we are giving wrong prescription.
So, but I have one point. Then I can give it to Kagi. We're listening to some of these people that were interviewed, and maybe one thing that maybe is not really being seen, and I don't know what we can do. Maybe from your expertise, maybe you're being conversant with the devolution, is basically the issue of opportunities. Talking about maybe job opportunities. When we're talking about counties and maybe how you've seen, maybe like a scenario, maybe even like Nakuru County, since devolution, when it comes maybe even to the issue of maybe locals in Nakuru County getting job opportunities, how do you think counties have actually performed, and how have they actually fared? looking at how creative can they be in terms of maybe generating own revenue, because according to Kenyans, maybe the belief or maybe the understanding, the perception is that we need to have these particular counties, and maybe in a way, other than maybe the infrastructure that maybe we can talk about, but the ability of Kenyans to have maybe that direct effect of having maybe something to put on table coming from their devolved unit.
Yeah, I think I will take us back to Article 174 of the Constitution of Kenya and look at the objects of devolution. The issue of creating jobs is a very secondary objective. Because even in the current economies, we shouldn't view government as a direct job creator, an employer. We should view government as one of creating an enabling environment to enable for you to do business, for the private sector to thrive and create those jobs, you know. So, and like, even if you are to consider them as employers, how far can they go, you know? How many? Even right now, I am sure the governors are really scratching their heads, especially because of the attachment they come, the promises they give, because the wage bill is on the limit, you know, on the very high limit. So it's either you rationalize that would mean send out some people home, and then you employ. But then the question.
So it's actually even a bad dream for any Kenyan or for any maybe citizen looking at these devolved units as a source of employment.
Yeah. The only thing they should, because what it says is to spur development at the grassroots level. That if we have roads, water access, agriculture, those are those are the backbone of actually the economy. But then again, let's not forget the aspect of proximate access to service delivery. Our colleague in the field, and maybe it's because of how we have structured the program, was only in Nakuru. The people of Nakuru, I can say to some extent, are a bit lucky. You know, when you don't travel, you'll think your mother is the best cook. Take that conversation to Lodwar, to Lokichar, to Marsabit. You know how big Marsabit is? I was just comparing it with other counties. There is a ward. There is a ward in Marsabit County that is bigger than Mombasa County.
Really?
Yes. Mombasa County is around 290 kilometers square. But we're talking about 65 to 70,000 square kilometers of landmass for Marsabit County, and these are facts you can check.
But now that is different from the number of population.
No, I'm talking about the landmass.
The landmass, yeah.
And that is very important when it comes to conversation around service delivery. Now you are telling somebody in Marsabit, you will cross, Marsabit was in the Rift Valley, right? You will cross all those thousands of kilometers square and cross other counties to come where?
To Nakuru.
To Nakuru.
It used to be in Rift Valley.
Yes. Yes. You know, so the aspect of proximate service delivery, and I know even beyond the services, the governance and governance and administrative services, because that's what we come to the headquarters to do. Giving regional, if governments were to go back to the regional provinces, there are other challenges they will experience. They will not even have control over what happens in the dispensary. You know. But that's why the county constitution has said that even with the 47 counties, the counties are encouraged to decentralize further. That shouldn't end at the county headquarters. And here we are having a conversation that is pointing towards decentralizing, that we should go, the constitution is talking about we should go even to village level, have village administrator who can coordinate service delivery and public participation at that level. The ward administrators, the sub-county administrators and such like. And here we're talking about now, and that's why I'm saying, of course, we'll see whether this process will go to public participation. And I've asked, you can take this to the bank. Nobody is ready to lose their county. Especially, we are looking at the bads that the counties have done. What are the goods?
What are the goods? Yeah, sure.
Before you continue with that, other than those who are proposing for the reduction of our counties, yesterday, those who went to the National Dialogue Committee, the members of Parliament, is like we have two quarters here. One, the governors are against the reduction of the counties, but members of parliament are proposing the increase of our counties, I think by 11. I don't know which way should we go. Should we go by reducing or increasing or
maybe just as we wind up, actually, my director, I didn't realize. we have spent for time, but maybe just as you summarize when I give it.
Yeah, so the issue of increasing is another problem. Because the people who are saying increasing, I know, we have talked about those who are saying the points, because here is a deliberation. Yes. Those who are giving suggestions for increasing, we have talked about their points. And you realize the numbers, they don't match. You know, their points and the numbers don't match. Those who are saying increasing, there is the issue of equity and marginalization, especially the communities. For politicians, forget about it. Them, they want to create more governors. They want to create more positions, and you know that so that I summarize. So I would just encourage people to bring facts into the conversation so that we have a justifiable decision.
Sure.
So anybody who wants to, the numbers are out there.
Thank you so much, and that is where we bring it to a stop for today. Thank you so much for joining us for this mid-morning pack on behalf of the entire team that has made it as success.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.